So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. That which was to come. Remember how Max would say, and that was Christianity and science. That which was to come. Christianity and science. So this is typical of apocalyptic literature, to give then, after having recounted up to the present, to give the future salvation that would be brought forth by God at the end of the present world. The classic examples of this are, of course, Revelation, and also in Daniel. You have in other books of the Bible parts or sections that are apocalyptic. For instance, in Isaiah 24 to 27, or Zechariah 9 to 14, or Mark 13, belong to that type of literature. But you have outside of the Bible other examples. You have the book of Jubilees, or the book of Enoch. You have the Apocalypse of Baruch, which is found in the Jewish, here comes a nice big word, pseudepigrapha. Pseudepigrapha. Pseudepigrapha meaning that this particular body of literature, they don't know who wrote it. It would be called, say the book would be called the Book of Enoch, or the Apocalypse of Baruch. But Enoch didn't really write it, and Baruch didn't really write his apocalypse. They would take a character that they looked up to, that they respected, for instance, like Enoch, who they felt walked with God, and would, in order to give authority to what they wanted to say about their subject, they would call it this is the Book of Enoch, as though to say, this is how Enoch would have looked at this subject. But actually, let's see, if you have a pseudonym, that means you're not really using your own name. So it's pseudepigrapha. Writings, yeah. It's a Pseudepigrapha. You see grapha on the end, meaning writings, huh? Pseudepigrapha. And you have many apocalypses. I think there's let's see, I think there's an apocalypse of Abraham, and there's a whole list of these apocalypses. And so you know now the general characteristics of an apocalyptic piece of literature, that it will often include the sense of a Messiah, and Christ, we know, is the Messiah, the word for Messiah. Christ is the translation of the Hebrew word Messiah, and in Greek it means the anointed one, the one anointed by, or chosen by, selected by God to take that exalted office of salvation, of saving. So, can you see what an adventure this was to be pursuing all these things? I could finally see, as I was working, how that hadn't been a divergent line at all. You see, that it was tying right in with the apocalypse, with the 16th chapter, with the fact that we are on the verge of the fulfilling of time, the fulfilling of the ages, the end times. It's what you hear all of the preachers and evangelists talking about on the radio, on the television. The end times, the end times. It drives you nuts. Yeah, in a word. And I turn that off anytime I hear it, and suddenly I found myself right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of what they call in, let me see, what's that? Yes, the Judeo-Christian doctrine of eschatology. Eschatology. E-S-C-H-A-T-O-L-O-G-Y is a term of Greek origin or derivation, meaning literally a discourse about last things. A discourse about last things. And typically refers to the Judeo-Christian doctrine of the coming of the kingdom of God and the transformation or transcendence of history. I just loved it. I thought, that idea is out there. It's out there. It's everywhere. It isn't just with us. It isn't just an idea that we have and think it's going to somehow get out, and how can we get it out, and how can we get it to save mankind and humanity. The Christ is there. It's everywhere, working. And you see that I found that in those various apocalyptic literatures are found the concept of the 7,000-year periods. That's where the concept began. Around about 200 BC to approximately 200 AD, that concept of the 1,000-year periods began to come into the literature, into the Jewish literature, the Jewish apocalyptic literature, to show that there was a 7,000-year plan of God, and that 7,000-year plan governed the world ages, that it would govern the world ages until the end of time. And that then time would go out, and that there would be no 8,000-year period, but there would be an eighth-day sense of pure being, pure eternity, eternal oneness with God. So, let me just read you what one writer says about the 7,000-year plan of God. Again, I apologize because I see that I have not got this man's name, and this is such an interesting and wonderful presentation that he gives here. And anyone who would like to have that from me, I'll be happy to give it to you when I return home. He's writing about this, and he says that God was revealing to us his blueprint for the ages. God told us, and he's going back now, this writer is going right back to the 7 days of creation. He goes right back to the 7 days of creation. He says, God was already revealing to us his blueprint for the ages. God told us that the weekly Sabbath is a picture of something to come and centered in the Messiah. And in that day, the day of the Lord, how many times have you heard that terminology, the day of the Lord? Huh? In that day, the day of the Lord, there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, a sign, a banner, and to it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. The day of the Lord is the day of rest. The rest in the Messianic kingdom. It's the kingdom period, the new kingdom period, not the 4,000-year period, but the period of the coming in of the kingdom of heaven. The ancient Jewish prophets and scholars related the seventh day to the Messianic kingdom. Thy kingdom come. This is the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come. They related the seventh day to the Messianic kingdom. On the Sabbath, Psalm 92 is recited. He's talking about in the Jewish faith. Every Sabbath, which is from sundown on Friday to the Saturday, through Saturday. Psalm 92, a Messianic psalm, is recited today as it was by the Levites in the temple in the early days. It is a portrayal of the world's perfection, how life will be in Messianic times. In rabbinic tradition, the, quote, life of the world to come is described as a day that is completely Sabbath. Isn't that great? In other words, that 7,000-year period is a period that is completely Sabbath. It's a world day, a world age day, that 7,000-year period. This seventh day in the scriptures is often called the day of the Lord. It was taught that this day, as well as each of the previous 6 days, would last for 1,000 years. And so this man, without leaving the Bible really, traces everything back to the days of creation. In the other writings, such as in Enoch, you have quite an extensive presentation of the 7,000-year periods, of the 7 world ages, always connecting back to the 7 days of creation. It's absolutely fascinating to see what happened to that idea, say, after the canonization of the Bible, what happened to all of that literature, how it was secreted away, that these things became the great deep secrets, the mysteries, the secret teachings. You have it filtering down through the Kabbalah, the secret Jewish teachings, and through the ages. And so it has been corrupted, you see, by various other influences. But when you go to the heart of it, when you go to the source of it, this is what you find. Isn't that terrific? That's the pattern. And then he gives many of the wonderful quotes that we love. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night, Psalms 90. Then in Peter 3, Beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, but is long-suffering to usward, long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. It all begins to make more sense. Then in Revelation, of course, and they lived and reigned with Messiah for 1,000 years, but the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. They shall be priests of God and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Then he mentions an article entitled Millennium from the Encyclopedia of Jewish Religion, in which it states that the belief in each day of the week of creation represented a 1,000-year day of God, with the seventh day being the day of the Lord, or millennium. This belief could first be found in the Slavic version of the pseudepigraphal Book of Enoch. It was further developed by the Tanaim, which were the rabbis, picked up that idea shortly before, during, and immediately after Jesus' lifetime. So this was present. You see, this was Jesus was born into that whole literary setting, Jewish setting. And let's see. Yes, before, during, and immediately following Jesus' lifetime, who based their interpretations on Psalms 90, verse 4. They explained that as the days of creation were 6 in number, the world would last for 6,000 years. The 7th world day, the Sabbath, was to be the 1,000 years of the Messiah.